Well, hello. Welcome back to Tail 3 Cabins. We had about an inch of rain over the weekend and my water barrel is full. So we planted this garden a couple weeks ago and it's doing pretty good. If you remember, I was tilling it up a few episodes ago, so we got everything in. And I'm going to continue this week with some more loose ends, and I'm going to start off with helping out my neighbor who had rented a man lift, a rather large one, and got it stuck in his backyard. So come check it out. My neighbor, just like our backyard, is pretty well shaded, so I think it stays a little bit soupy back there. And he rented a good-sized man lift. I had rented one last year when I started staying in my house, and he has some chores he wanted to do around the house and trim a lot of trees back. And this has off-road tires on it, and it does have four-wheel drive, but he's in there pretty good. Now I can see a lot of comments coming already about the way this is chained up to his backhoe, but he did this kind of before I got here, and that's the way he wants to do it. So I'm just operating the backhoe. Right now I'm just kind of pulling gently. As I'm pulling, the front tires are coming off the ground, but it's slowly moving, but not moving quick enough. He's not completely out of the woods here, but he's in a better spot. Still has to do some work on the back part of his house, so he's not going to take it out of the backyard just yet. We got it moved up in a good spot to where I think he can get it out. If he needs help, he'll call me back. Another loose end is our breezeway here. This is an end of the spring project before the nice weather comes up, and Karen wanted to redo our breezeway with some lap siding, and it didn't come out too bad. Worst part was just trying to cut the contour around the log part of the house and extending the outlets. If you remember last fall, I rented this lift to stay in our house, and I got all the high areas and hard to reach areas with it, and we did everything but the very front part of our log home. So before we get into those hot summer days, we're going to do this by brush. It's not worth trying to spray it with the screening and the windows. It just would get everywhere, just make a mess, and you'd waste a lot of stain. So we're finishing off this project the old-fashioned way. One thing nice about covered and protected areas is that hardly ever needs to be restained, and this is the first time we've stained it since I built the house 26 years ago. Screened porch is definitely one of our favorite spots in the summertime. It's nice to just sip a cup of coffee in the mornings or maybe watch some deer walk through the yard in the evenings. Just an overall nice gathering area. Now back to my neighbor. He still has the man lift, and now he's trimming trees. And one of his concerns was that he built that nice huge pole barn, and some of the trees are starting to die, and he's concerned about some of the limbs falling off of the trees and hitting his pole barn. So he's working on this one here, and he's got a rope attached to it, which I don't know if you can see, but it comes to my property. And he had asked me if I would drive his tractor again and kind of put some tension on the rope. Well, I told him I got my tractor right here in the shed. I'll just tie it off to my tractor real quick. So I got some tension on the rope, and he's cutting it, and I'm really not aware of just how far over this branch is hanging above his pole barn. So I'm keeping some tension on it, but I don't want to put too much tension on it so it's going to bind his blade as he's cutting through this branch. And I was under the impression he'd cut it a little ways, and then I would pull on it and it would slowly just break it apart, and then he'd cut a little bit more, but he went right through. So as it fell, no amount of acceleration on my tractor is going to beat the acceleration of a falling limb easing up on that rope. So I went over there to survey just how close it was, and it was within 2 feet of his pole barn. So it was a little close for comfort, but no damage done. It was a little scary, scarier when he was up there watching it come down than from my view with the tractor. In southern Ohio, I use a antenna to boost my cell phone signal, and it doesn't work great, but it does give me enough signal that I get some data and I can push out a couple text messages. In an emergency, we can contact somebody. But my tower down there was rotten out, and I kind of put some feelers out to see if anybody knew of any old antenna towers that were around. And my friend Don, his old hunting spot here, we're down by Holmes County, Ohio. And this property just sold, and he's not going to be able to hunt there anymore. But the people that still own it said that we could take the tower. So we went down there, and we had to figure a way to get this thing down. It's over 50 feet long. It's probably been up there forever. And just bringing it down in one piece is kind of an issue here. So we get tied off with a rope, which goes around a post and creates some friction, so it's not going to come down all at once. There is hinges on the bottom of this thing, but they're so rotted and rusted that they're really going to get damaged as this thing comes down.
Make sure it don't kick out at you just in case. That might not be any good anymore. Just gonna get that gutter. Hold on a second. You got it?
Yep.
Hold on. Let me get inside the...
So that went all right. Didn't do any damage or anything. The hardest part was getting the sections apart. They were kind of rusted together, and there were some old screws that we had to get off in each section. That took a little while. We got everything loaded up, going to bring it back to my house, and then we're going to take it down to southern Ohio. He did one last look around at the place he used to hunt for many, many years, and it was kind of a nice area. First time I was down there, and it kind of seemed a shame that these things come and go, but that's life. Next was my arcade machine. I started that almost the same time as I started working on the bathroom. And I would just kind of work on that when I was upstairs in the garage working out and taking a half hour here, a half hour there. But I finally got it all together, wired up, and I'm probably going to do a separate video for people that are interested in building their own arcade machine. I'm not going to go into great detail. There's a ton of videos on different methods and different controls and buttons and control boards, but I'm going to go over what the things that I picked, some of the mistakes that I made, and hopefully save some people some time in which direction if they decide they want to build their own arcade machine to go. Next, I was getting some comments on how did my grass come in from last year in the backyard. And if you watched any of my videos last year, I did a couple series together on killing off my backyard, tilling it up, getting some topsoil. We put down some grass seed, and then I put down some peat moss on top of that. Right after we planted, we got a nice gully washer. We probably got about 2 to 3 inches of rain in like just a couple hours. So the rain was very depressing. We weren't sure exactly what was going to happen with the seed, and it seemed like a lot of the seed pulled into different areas, and it pulled a lot of the peat moss with it. And wherever the peat moss pulled, that's where the seed came up the best. So it came up kind of patchy. I was disappointed with it. It was last fall when we planted it. So I decided that I was going to reseed it this spring, and we did that a couple weeks ago at the end of April. Thought that most of our snowy weather was gone, so we kind of scuffed it up a little bit, reseeded it, put some more peat moss down, and we're hoping that we fill in a lot of those gaps. And I'll give you a couple pictures of what that looks like. One thing that happened, and I don't know if it had anything with me changing the grade or not, but for the first time since I've owned our log cabin in northern Ohio, we have a septic system and next to the septic system is a compressor pump, which basically just blows air at the bottom of the septic tank and kind of bubbles up to the top, and that's supposed to break things down quicker. It's called a nyatic system, and it has a good expensive motor in there. They're usually about $600 a pop, and our alarm was going off. We got another good rain after we planted grass and reseeded it this spring. We got another 2 inches, and it really came down. That pump is right next to my septic tank, and it's below grade, and it's never flooded. And the alarm was going off in my basement for our septic system, and I couldn't figure out right away what it was. And then I was starting to put 2 and 2 together with the heavy rain and the alarm going off at the same time, that there was some kind of issue, and I was hoping it wasn't flooded. But I went out there, I had to walk on the grass seed we just planted, and it was kind of mucky, to check it out to see what was going on. I popped the lid, and sure enough, that motor is submerged. And we just bought that back in October, and it was not more than 6-7 months old, and they're $600 a pop. So I unplugged it and I removed it and I dried it out for about 4 or 5 days, and I'm going to plug it in and show you what happened. So it looks like it's working. It might make a little bit more noise than it used to. It's hard to say because they are a little bit noisy. So I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to get an extender and put that motor above grade now, so it's going to look like there's a little submarine underneath the grass in our backyard. And hopefully it'll keep it from flooding and we won't have any more issues. Last time I was down here in April, on the way back, we decided we'd stop at the lumber store, and we got some contractor names and some information, and then we stopped at a few places off the freeway on the way home, modular homes and places that build cabins. Some are like trailers and some are a little bit more luxurious. We did stop at this one place that makes modular homes, and man, it was kind of tempting because some of the prices I've been getting to replace this for just the shell is close to upwards of $120,000, $130,000, and I'm thinking $60,000 to $70,000, and that's not to include the foundation. The foundation would be separate, but a lot of the places are pretty pricey. But we did stop and looked at this one modular home, and it was kind of nice. We toured it and looked through it. The only thing is it's so nice and ornate on the inside, and I think the sticker on that was $136,000, and that's with everything you see in it, minus any furniture. It's got the granite countertops, nice cabinets. It has a real nice master bath shower. It was really laid out and looked almost way too nice to be down here for a hunting camp. And my one concern would be just that. It's way too nice if you ever wanted to sell it to get your money back out of it. So we looked at that, and it was tempting because that's all finished, and compared to what some of these other prices I'm getting for just a shell, it's pretty darn close. And they can come here and put that on top of a foundation within a day or two, and it's pretty much all done. They just put the piece parts up there, crank up the roof, do some connections and some maintenance. From time to time they'll put them on sale if they're going to be moving out a model or changing a model, so they'll put the models on sale. So I did give them my name, and if something were to happen, to give me a call, and if they discounted $15,000 or $20,000, it might be in that realm of what we want to do. It would be awfully nice and a little too luxurious, but you know, maybe we could roughen it up a little bit. We also looked at another model, and I was told that this one was $60,000 for just the shell, and this is a little bit more like it, but it's not similar to what I was looking to build. It's a little bit narrower. It might have an issue. It's only 24 feet wide, and there might be an issue where if I want to have a stairway coming up from the garage, which would be like a basement coming up to the first floor, that it might be hard to incorporate that in a home that's only about 24 feet wide. So I'm going to keep looking around and keep throwing stuff out there, but it's kind of depressing with the way lumber prices are right now. Everybody that I talked to is also backed up. A lot of contractors were saying, when you want to build this thing? And I said, well, I'm not in a terrible hurry, but you know, if we're looking at, you know, this fall or whatever. And he says, well, I'm at least 1.5 to 2 years out. There's a lot of forces working against me on this, and I wanted to do it up nice, but I really didn't want to blow so much money on it that I would never recoup it if we, for some reason, wanted to sell it. This is just an area where it would be hard to sell a hunting cabin for $200,000 or $250,000 in southern Ohio. So there's so many things I'd like to move forward on. The pole barn, building this cabin in southern Ohio, and it just seems for one reason or another there are more stumbling blocks than usual for this type of stuff. But I'll keep plugging away. So that's just a couple loose ends, and I'm gonna finish enjoying this fire for the evening. Hopefully it's gonna clear out. I'd like to take some pictures of the stars. If we get rid of some more of these clouds, then it'll be time to head home and do some projects back up in northern Ohio. So I appreciate you watching these videos. Hope you enjoy them and subscribe and keep an eye on us. Take care, everybody.